Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, from race to recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, good morning, Kenny.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic as well.
Great. We have a wonderful guest, Beverly Anderson-Abbs, to join us today. Welcome, Bev.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be here.
Glad to have you on here. Super excited to have you. Beverly is an environmental scientist who happens to like to run a little bit. And when we say run a little bit, like run all the time, like ultra running. If you know anything about ultra running, you've heard of Beverly, and she's amazing. She's got quite a long resume of races that she's completed. So we're excited to have you on here and talk about this. We want to talk about the mindset, along with the Vol State race that you just completed about, a month? Was it June? This is being recorded in August. So you just finished that one. So we're excited about that as well. So welcome, Beverly. Let's give us some background. Tell us about yourself. How did you get into this ultra running thing from the environmental science side of things?
It's many years ago. I was always into run various athletic things throughout school. And then when I got out of school, I went to travel around Australia, and I did that on a bike. So that got me into doing long distance stuff and, like spending a day out doing things. And when I came back and moved to San Diego, into bike racing, and eventually with my husband got into adventure racing. Nice. Not really super excited about running long distances at a point, but as we got more into adventure racing, we started thinking, in order to be really competitive, we needed to be able to run a lot. So we started doing 50Ks and 50 milers as training for the adventure races. And then eventually just dropped the adventure racing and moved fully into the ultras. And that's where I've been since the early 2000s. So pretty close to 20 years of just running a lot.
Outstanding. A lot, yes.
Yeah, a lot. How, so 20 years of that, I mean, is it always a new adventure when you come in now? Is it a different tactic? I mean, you've tackled distances that are quite extraordinary, right? Everything from an adorable 50K to up to several hundred miles. What keeps that fire going on continuing to kind of want to push yourself?
I try to not ever get down into training in a certain way. I consider what I do my fun. My running is fun for me. So as long as I'm keeping it fun and doing different things all the time, it just never really gets old. And if it does get old, if it starts feeling like a job, I just stop for a little while. I'll go back, I'll do some mountain bike races, I'll spend time climbing mountains, I'll just do other things. And eventually my body will come back and say, you want to run again. And it gets exciting again. So it's just, for me, it's all about just keeping it fun and doing different things. And, it's a good thing to do. It gets me outside. Is nasty and ugly, I don't do it.
So do you follow specific training programs? Do you work with a coach, or what is it that, how do you set this up? Because it seems like you do quite a few races a year. And I know some people just race instead of train, and then other people love to train. What is it for you that kind of blends that back and forth?
I have rarely followed specific training plans. Times when I've been on a marathon, but for ultras, it's just do what feels good, and if it doesn't feel good, don't do it.
Nice.
I never had a coach. Consider myself uncoachable. So, because I know if a coach said, don't do that race, or don't race your mountain bike, or don't climb that mountain, I would laugh and go do it anyway. So I've never with a coach because of that. Not to say I don't listen to coaches. If somebody says something that I think is useful information that I hadn't really thought about, yes, I will take that into consideration and possibly change what I'm doing based on that. I literally consider myself because I'll do my own thing anyways. So,
does your husband know that too? Like, does he try to coach you, or is it more of a subtle kind of thing, or vice versa? Do you coach him?
He wouldn't even try.
Smart man. Yeah, smart
actually, man. A certified coach, and I've tried to help him, and it's no. I've tried coaching him, and he totally ignores me, and then same thing for else, and we'll do it. So. On that a long time ago.
Yeah.
As you started, I'm curious to know about sort of those folks that gravitate towards distance, like these types of distance. I mean, you can, there's people that are like, look, I want to try a half marathon. That's a goal, right? That's a big deal, right? And we're excited when we have people that are, walkers are just now getting off the couch and want to do their first 5K. It's just as exciting for them. It is. For you, when you come across a 50 miler, that sense of accomplishment. But was the Australia trip just kind of shown you that you have that kind of slow twitch sort of, mentality that can keep going? Or is it, you sort of, I guess the reason I'm asking is because I'm a fast twitch guy trying to do an Ironman, which I have no business doing. Right. So, because I tend to like to do the faster, shorter stuff, but I'm trying to train myself, if you will, on the longer stuff. Did it just come naturally to you, or have you seen other people that you've raced against, or that you've seen at races that struggle with that as far as those distances? Or is it just you got what's in front of you and you just sort of go and you're okay with that? I'm curious to know about that part.
Wow. That's probably a way of thinking about it that I hadn't really considered before, but I suppose it's been just kind of natural for me to be able to do that kind of stuff. And, when I get into these longer distances, I can go at that low level of physical output. But when I start getting into night travel, I am not good with sleep deprivation. So that's been something I've had to overcome with these longer events. And, the first couple of times that I did Ball State and then Heart of the South, I done them with my husband, Al. And I was the one who handled all the day stuff. If we needed, extra water, if he needed help with his salt intake, if he was, I took care of that. The night was his to take care of me and, keep me from wandering into traffic when I was falling asleep.
Wow.
Yeah, things. So that's always been something that I've had to overcome. And even when we were doing adventure races, I can remember adventure races where we were going overnight and I would literally be sleeping as I was walking and the guys on the team would just keep me going in the right direction.
Wow.
Because that was me. So, out there, it keeps going on and you get into a routine of it. And, for something like Vol State, it's just looking forward to the next town. It's looking forward to the next telephone pole, whatever, just to keep yourself moving through some of those situations. But, the longer you go, the more adventure there is in it and the more interesting things you come to it. So it keeps you thinking, it keeps you moving, looking forward to those things.
For those that don't know, give a brief explanation of Vol State. What does that race entail?
Vol State, the full name of it is the last annual volunteer state road race.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yes.
It does, yes. It's a race that goes essentially across Tennessee. It starts in the northwest corner of Tennessee and cuts down through the middle to end up more or less in the southeast corner where Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee meet at that point. So it's 314 miles. And for Vol State, you can choose to run either crewed or screwed. Crewed, you can have any number of people driving along, stopping, giving you water, washing your feet, whatever they want to do for you. If you race uncrewed or screwed, you have nothing. You're on your own. You get food and water at mini marts. There are a number of people along the course who will put out coolers for runners with Gatorade and snacks and things, but you're completely on your own to cover that 314 miles. So it's a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah.
The people who are racing it are doing it in like 3 to 5 days. There's a 10 off. So if you look at it as just an adventure, there are people who do their 32 miles a day and get a hotel, and they turn it into literally a vacation on foot. Yeah. And it's a pretty cool way to see a really cool, and the people of Tennessee are amazing.
That's neat.
Nice.
So which one did you do? Did you do the crewed or the screwed?
I have done in every iteration that I've done.
Nice.
And which one did you prefer? I'm sorry. Which one did you prefer? Or is it just a different challenge, I guess?
For which one did I prefer of what?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, did you do both screwed and crewed?
No. I have always done screwed.
Sorry. Really? Okay. I'm sorry. The video, the audio cut out. So you just find random. That's fascinating. So is there
so this is out of the mind of Lazarus Lake, right? The race director who's Barkley Marathons fame and Dog's big backyard ultra. So this is of his brilliant, very disturbed mind of some of the exciting things that he puts out there as these things. So you get a route map beforehand, right? You get at least a general direction you need to go. I know the south, the one in the south that is not, you don't know until the day of, but this one, I think you get a full map ahead of time. That's
correct. Yes. Okay. For Vol State, the course is the same and has been the same for, I think, 7 or 8 years. Okay. So you know the course, you know where the various towns are. You really know where the major road are going to be set up. There's a few that coolers will just pop up because somebody's heard about it and they want to help out. Yeah. But there are a few what are called road angels who want to really help out the runners, and they'll set up, pop-up tents and cots and have food out there. I went through one and they had a microwave oven where they had nice. An extension cord going into their kitchen. You could heat up soup outside for you, and blankets awesome. And towels. So it is a very well event. The new one, the last annual Heart of the South. He's changing that course every year. So I've done it twice, and it's a completely different course each time. And the reason for that is he wants people to not have the assistance of those amazing road angels and really be on their own for that event. Kind of backfired on him because so many people found out about it that they found out where the course was the night before, and they were still coming out and helping the runners on Heart of the South. So
super friendly people out there.
Darn Southerners, I know.
They're so nice.
So nice. They should do this in New York.
It's amazing. Much fun for them.
So, do it in the Northeast. Do it in Boston, right? The heck.
There was one point, Heart of the South this year, I was running with another guy, James Fleming, and we were cruising along the road, and a sheriff's vehicle turned on his lights and pulled into a parking lot that we were coming up to. And we were like, oh my gosh, no, what is going on? And as we get closer, he gets out of the car with a couple of bottles of body armor and says, I just want to make sure you have a good day here.
That's great.
Nice.
Whoa. They kind of pop up out of nowhere, and it's just an amazing experience.
I think that kind of gives you a good sense of feeling about the country sometimes, even when everything else seems to be in complete turmoil, that there's still a little bit of some nice people out there and people care about other people. I think that's probably fun. Makes it
really
more
is.
Enjoyable.
Yeah. And, over this last couple, it's been a real positive infusion of that. Nice. To be able to go over to Tennessee and have that kind of love pouring out, helping all these people just doing stupid things. I mean, really, we're running down highways
in the storms and everything else. So
no kidding. Yeah, no. Is there to me, there's quite a big of a jump between like doing a 100-miler and doing 312 across the state unassisted. Like, is at some point in time on the mileage, it just doesn't matter? Like, to your point, I have this theory where, like, when endurance folks, you get to this sort of plateau and you try not to get, if you spike up, that's when things go wrong. But if you can just stay on that plateau, is it after 100 miles it gets silly, or is it after like 150 it gets silly? At what point does the mileage not matter, or does it always matter? I guess would be the question.
On something like Vol State or Heart of the South, I would probably argue that once you get past first day, it doesn't matter. Okay. Distance doesn't matter. You're just moving forward. So, the first is different for everybody. For me, my first day at Vol State, the first 12 hours was like 57 miles. So once I got past that, it's just continuing to move and keep going and, look for whatever's coming up next. And, with Vol State and more so with Heart of the South, because nothing is open in Tennessee after like 8:00. It's like Tennessee closes at 8:00 at night.
Yeah.
You know that you're going to be completely on your own through the dark. And you just, you have to be aware of that, prepare to have enough food and fluids to get another 12 to 40%. And that's, it's just kind of continuing forward and keep moving with everything you've got.
They don't open up early either. That's the other bonus is like 6 a.m. No, 8 maybe, kind of rolling around 9-ish.
Right.
So the South is really nice between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Is that what we're hearing? So that's solid 12 hours. Really nice people. After that, leave us alone. Is that the whole idea?
Much. Yeah.
Very good. So with that, what was it? Is it, they always say that on triathlons anyway, that nutrition is a fourth discipline, right? It's, is that the same when you start? What point is it mainly nutrition, or is it hydration? What are those things is it blisters? Is it all the above? Probably, I know, but like, we were going to ask you, like, what's your latest rash, right? Because that's probably,
chafing is a big topic for
chafing.
Us.
Yeah. So we just,
chafing and pea color.
Chafing in. That's the word we were trying to figure out. That's our bingo.
That's our bingo word.
With that, what is it that after so long, is it the touch points? Is it those things that normally are just like, okay, it starts getting bigger, or is it neuromuscular? Is it GI? What do you get scared of? Not scared of, but what do you start paying a lot more attention to?
It is so different in every event that, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint it. This year, because in Vol State, because it was raining so much, I had huge problems with my feet. I had blisters forming. I had trench foot starting. For me, it was all about where can I stop next and buy new socks, because I needed dry socks constantly. Where can I stop where I'm out of the rain and I can take my socks and shoes off and try to dry my feet out so that I'm starting over again. That is something I've not experienced in any of the other of these events that I've done. So that was big for me this year. The food, you pretty much, because you're totally reliant on mini marts, you pretty much just have to tell your, even if I don't feel like eating I need the nutrients. I need in my system. So it's, whatever you can get hold of. And 2 years ago, we did Ball State. The big thing was chicken biscuits. We could get chicken biscuits anywhere.
Nice.
And they were great.
Great.
And it's just, need the food to eat this. This year, I really had trouble finding chicken biscuits.
Really?
So, yeah, I don't know what it was. So it was, I had to find something else. And it turned out that corn dogs are good.
That is.
Any calorie is a good calorie at that point. So it doesn't matter.
Any calorie is a good
and
calorie.
corn dogs, just shovel it in and keep going.
Yeah. I was going to say nothing like a mini mart breakfast burrito to get your day going. Right. So
that'll work too.
That's funny.
One thing I've never done is go somewhere where I have to order food, like fast food places. A lot of people will stop and, they'll get McDonald's or whatever. Never done that. If I can't just pick it up off of a mini mart shelf or roller thingy, I'm not doing it.
So if it's not sitting under a heat lamp for a couple of hours beforehand, it's not your thing.
It's just, you must have the stomach of like a rock or something, because amazing. My GI system would absolutely
well, and that,
on me,
that's
right?
something that you have to be prepared to deal with. I actually had a struggle this year, almost 24 hours. I'd stopped and I got a chicken and cheese chimichanga at Fat Man. And
just none of that is good.
Name of the place. That is the name of the place.
I'm gonna track that down.
It was so much grease that my system just couldn't handle anything else. And it was close to 24 hours before I could eat anything again. So it was just keeping my movement at that slightly low level that it didn't get my stomach really upset.
Yeah.
And, there was a section where it was like a 6-mile downhill that I was trying to jog, and I would be able to go for about 5 minutes and then just have to stop, and felt like I was up, and then that would pass and I could jog another 5 minutes. And you just kind of try to get at that low level where you can keep moving. Yeah. And, when you're there, you're kind of hoping that you actually will throw up and get that out of your system.
Yeah. I know,
but it just never happened.
Yeah.
I try to explain that to people, that if you're getting to a point where you're nauseous in a long race and you're doing stuff, just throw up. Just make yourself throw up. You'll feel so much better. It means get rid of that. Start fresh, right? A little bit of water, and then you can eat again. Be perfect. So.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that the question that I always have about the distance stuff is when you're some people, when they get to a spot that's difficult, like a GI issue or other issues, are like, okay, that's it. My day's done. But somehow I think, Tom does Ultraman, you're doing big, long distances. There's going to be sort of a valley of death, right? There's going to be a spot, and it almost like you have confidence in knowing that you can there's going to be another side to it. How do you, it sounds good, but when you're in the middle of it, I know I'm in the middle of issues when I'm on a bike, I just want to shut down and go, okay, that's enough. I'm going to live to fight another day. How do you get through? I mean, what's that mentality to get through that? And how do you distinguish between, okay, this is a phase and this isn't? And I'll just give you an example. Just read, I think Tom and I were talking about it earlier, Tim O'Donnell had a heart attack in the middle of his bike portion on an Ironman, on a triathlon. 300 watts. He had a heart attack and he finished 11th overall. I mean, that's insane.
And not a minor heart attack, like the Widowmaker,
a heart attack,
like massive heart attack.
And he's like, wow, that hurts, but I got to finish the bike and get on the run. Right. So how do you distinguish, how do you get through it? And then, or what do you tell yourself? And then, at what point do you go, okay, that's not going to work? How do you draw that line, I guess?
I might have drawn that line at a heart attack.
Fine. Really? Are you committed, Bev? Are you committed?
I suppose if it was just a little one, I might have continued. But there are some things that are going to be just a phase. And I will tend to try to work my way through those things. So the stomach issues, when you still have 2 days to go, 2.5 days to go, you know that that's going to pass. It would be, if it were a stomach issue like I had in a 50 miler, that might have been a different case because that wouldn't have passed. Although I would probably think, it's going to suck, but I'm going to be done here shortly. If something happens that I am pretty sure if I continue, I'm going to mess myself up for a long time afterwards, like an injury, a torn muscle, things like that, I will err on the side of caution. If I were 20 years younger, I'd probably push through things that I know are now I know it's going to take a really long time for me to recover from certain types of injuries. So I will tend to pull out. And that, with the last annual Heart of the South in June this year, I was in the front. I was winning, running with James Fleming. We were doing like a 6-mile downhill out of the mountains, and I felt a pop behind my knee and, kept going. It wasn't super painful. About an hour later, I sat down to do some stuff with my feet and noticed the whole back of my leg bruised and swollen. And I started thinking back and I thought, okay, that pop meant something to me, and this is a bad thing. So I made the decision to not push that to a point that it might tear and I wouldn't be able to recover from it. And I dropped out of Heart of the South. And, I came back, I got to the doctor. It had torn part of the insertion of my hamstring. Most of the swelling was Baker's cyst that had developed because of the tear. So they drained that, they dealt with that. And the doctor said, there's not a lot else we can do. Just keep it warm so that the blood doesn't clot up around the muscles, and, start doing massages, keep the blood moving.
Yeah.
And I said, so would it be for me to go back and do another 300 miles in 3 weeks? And his response was, well, I probably wouldn't, but then I wouldn't have done it to begin with. So, as long as you take it easy and don't do any explosive motions that are going to continue to tear the hamstring, I don't see that there's any reason why you just. So that was something always in the back of my mind for Ball State is, and when you're running 300 miles, you're not really going to be doing explosive motions. I'm not going to be sprinting. So I figure this is good.
Yeah.
So, I went back knowing that I had an injury and I needed to be a little more cautious, but I had, for Heart of the South, I chose to not push it. Yeah. So it's, it's balancing. What do you think you can get through and what do you think might mess you up badly?
Yeah.
So when you're doing this, so the mindset, you're a scientist, do you approach your training, your racing, running, endurance with kind of that science mindset of checking the boxes, what's working, what's not working, and having a really good sense of what your body can and can't do? Is that kind of the approach you take to it?
Pretty much. As a scientist, my running is to get me away from my job. So I try not to put too much thought into the running stuff. And, I've been watching Bob Hearn, who won Vol State, and looking at the stuff that he's posting. And he spends hours and hours just downloading his data and going over his data and, preparing spreadsheets for splits and it's, and that's cool. And if this were my job, I would probably do, but for me, the running is to for my job, so I try not to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But pointed out, do I go over my body? Do I check in with myself? Yes, absolutely. My initial education was not in environmental science. It was in essentially kinesiology and functional morphology.
Oh, okay.
So I am well aware of what my body should be doing. And if things are going wrong, I know what's going wrong and how to take care of it. So do fall back on that and just sort of check in with my systems constantly as I'm going. And that's something that everyone should do. You might not have that kind of background, but check in with yourself. And if you're running, a 5 or a 10K or a 100 miler, constantly check in and ask yourself, could my body keep doing this for X amount that I have left? And if your answer is no, then you might want to back off a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's about being aware of what your system can do and using it to its fullest.
Yeah. You noted here that you suffered from overtraining syndrome. If you can give us a little kind of description of that, and how did you know you were doing that, or did someone have to tell you, like, look, how did that come about, and how did it manifest itself, and then how did you get out of it? Let's do the arc, shall we?
Yeah. That was one of those periods where I was actually sort of following a training plan recently. Yes. And what happened with that is I had signed up to run the California International Marathon in December of 2020. It got canceled because of COVID, but they put out a training program to build up, and then they were doing it as a virtual, so you could still be involved in all this. So I figured, okay, whatever, I'm signed up for it, I'll do the virtual and I'll follow their training plan. So I did actually lock myself into the training plan, which was not a bad training plan. It had building up your long runs over the weeks, and doing certain things during the weekdays and whatnot. But I didn't give myself those breaks. I didn't say, I don't feel like running, I'm going to go for a mountain bike ride. I don't feel like running, I'm going to go climb a mountain. I didn't allow for that. Ended up, I think it was, like 12 or 14 weeks. And all I did was follow this training plan. And I knew as I was getting end of it, the long runs were getting up like 18 and 21 miles, and those were each weekend. And I started, as I was getting to that point, I started recognizing that the runs were getting harder than they should be. My resting heart rate wasn't coming back down to what it should be. And just those little signs that I know I should be paying attention to, but I was on this training plan.
Yeah. Follow the training plan.
Right. Yeah. So I just kept going, and I did those last couple, and just, I did the 18-mile and was destroyed 2 days. And then I did the 21-mile and again was destroyed for a couple of days. And I thought, okay, I got to do the marathon. It's next week. I'm just going to get it done with. And I went out and started going, and I got to like about my mile 12, and I had to stop and walk. I had 0.
Wow.
And I got to mile 13, and Alan had passed me and was now ahead of me on our little virtual course. And I got to 13 and turned around to head back. And at about mile 17 or 18, I was catching him. So I had been able to pick up after walking for a mile. I'd been able to pick back up and keep going. And I kept going, and it was just a slog for me. And my pace was gradually getting slower and slower and slower. But I made it. I did my 26.2 miles and added a little extra to make sure it, loaded properly on Strava and all those stupid things you have to deal with. And I had set it up so I would end and I'd have about a half a mile to walk home and just do a bit of a cool down that way. And I finished it and I started walking home and my legs just went into these horrible cramps.
Wow.
And by the time I got home, my left leg had seized up so badly I could barely walk. And, I got into the house, I showered, I laid down for a little while. And when I got up, I could not walk.
Oh.
I couldn't put any left leg. And that was it. And my whole system had just completely shut down. And for me, I think it was like 2 weeks before I even tried to run again. It was the next day I poles because I couldn't put on my left leg. I messed that up so badly by pushing through what I was dealing with. And I went out and I did like a half a mile at a 40-minute pace. So 20 minutes to go half a mile. And I was excited. And then the next day I got a mile in 20 minutes. And then it was just like clawing my way back. What can I walk? How can I pick up my walking? And I think it was literally 2 weeks. And I started doing 5-minute walk, 1-minute run, and just started building up from that. But I really dug a hole pushing through and trying to follow that training plan. So
I'm sorry, did you change nutrition for that recovery period? I mean, to bounce out of this overtraining, I mean, is it not just a little bit of rest and kind of slowly getting back into it again, but did you have to eat differently? Did you have to like more protein, more carbs, something along those lines? Or did you just keep going?
Yeah, didn't change what I was eating. I eat a fairly high protein diet, and it's chicken and fish and things like that. Clean diet, and then a lot of vegetables. So I really didn't change that. I did start drinking a lot more than I normally do. I'm
water,
electrolytes, drinking. I tend to stay in a slightly dehydrated state because I have to go to the bathroom a lot. So, so during the day, I just don't drink because I don't want to be going back and forth constantly. But during this period, I really was making sure that I was drinking constantly, electrolytes, just water, whatever, just keeping the fluids in my system and making sure I didn't go into that slightly dehydrated state for a few weeks of that. But yeah, it's hard to claw back out of a situation like that. And, the big thing for me, the way I can detect where I am with the whole overtraining, my normal resting heart rate is in the low 40s. And after that horrible marathon, my resting heart rate was sitting in the highs. So once it got back down to the 40s, I figured, okay, I'm getting back down and I could start my training again and do those things. But that's something that's very important for people to watch is, what is that resting heart rate doing? There's a lot of things you can look at, but that's one of the key pieces of information to know if you're overtraining or not is that resting heart rate coming back down.
Yeah, because if you're just tired and you just unmotivated to get out is not the same thing. But if you can see that you've got everyone is tracking their daily, numbers, whether they've got the full on whoop thing going on or whether they're just tracking it with others. You should have at least a base idea of what your resting heart rate is. And if it's 20 beats higher and it won't go down, then that's something to look at. But I would say most people probably don't even get close to that, but it is something to keep an eye on. I mean, it's just, and I think as you pointed out, if you don't feel good, if you're not doing that, not to push through that, especially in your training as you're going along, just because you want to stay on that training program. I think it's huge to know that. I know as I'm getting older. I'm 2 feet firmly on the other side of the second half century. I'm enjoying this part of it, but I also know that I take more rest days than I used to. It's just my body will go, and then I just know I just need a day off, and I'll just do something easy. I'll take a walk, I'll do something else, and just to and I bounce back faster and I get stronger. But anytime I try to push through these training plans where I'm 14 days in a row before I get a rest day, or even 7 days in a row before I get a rest day, it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's just not there. And I'm still getting stronger. I'm still getting stronger, and I'm able to go longer distances and all of that. But I think that's a key component of knowing your body and kind of watching those things.
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. That's something that people really need to pay more attention to. I see people posting all the time, but I feel unmotivated, I'm tired, I'm dragging. Should I go out and do my run? And everyone's coming on, go and run, you'll feel better. And
Yeah.
I'll go on and say, no, no. If
It
you
depends.
feel that awful,
Yeah.
just take a day off.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't do you any good to push through feeling awful. And there's a fine line, because there are some days where, yeah, you don't want to go for a run, but once you get out there, you do feel better. Those days, and after 20 years of doing this, if I feel awful and shouldn't be running, I know, and I just don't run.
I think and that's the beautiful irony, I think, with ultra distance folks. Like, on the one hand, during a training session, if you feel awful, you just need to stop. And then in the middle of the fight, if you will, you feel awful and you have to just push through it, right? To the point. So it's a weird sort of irony that goes along. When you approach these now, right? You're I think you're over 50, right? I believe, right?
A ways.
Okay. So how do you approach it? Do you approach it differently now than you did 15 years ago? Is it the same, but just a little bit, to Tom's point, do you just take a little more rest days? Or when you approach a race, have you had to change sort of the way you've done it? Or have you just gotten a lot smarter so you know sort of what to expect? Probably both, right?
Probably a little bit of both. I do train very differently than I did, 15, 20 years ago, when we were younger. We would go out for 12-hour training days. Mm-hmm. And I just don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. If I feel like I need something that be 12 hours, I'll enter a race, and I'll do it that way, and I'll keep my training sane. Mm-hmm. And do a race for a long training day. But I guess over the years, I've learned to listen to my body a lot better than I used to. 15, 20 years ago, if I felt awful, I would go out and do whatever anyways. And I'd probably do a harder run than I would normally have planned to kind of beat my body into submission, essentially. But now I'm much more likely to say, I don't feel good. Something's going on. Let's just go for a walk, or let's do an easy hike or something like that. So I definitely pay attention to how my body is feeling and don't try to push through some of these really low periods. So,
and I don't think people give enough credit to cross training. The fact that you're moving, I mean, anytime I've had an injury and my legs, like where running was kind of hindered, but it was okay to be on the bike. The bike is still helping your running. You're not getting the pounding, but you're still getting the motion. You're still getting through that. And I think when you mentioned earlier, it's like, I'm just going to go for a mountain bike ride today, or I'm just going to go for an easy spin on the bike out here, or I'm going to do, people don't realize that it's movement. And I think that's what we've tried to, kind of tell our audience, is that you're an athlete if you're moving. You don't have to be super special. You don't have to do anything else. You just move. If we're active, we're going to be much better off as we get older. That activity is the most important thing, and to kind of balance it in a long-term sense. None of us are making millions of dollars on this. I mean, I'm assuming we're all not making millions of dollars on this. So I'm personally don't have a paycheck tied to it. It'd be great if there was, but it's more for a lifestyle. It's more for fun, and it's more because we feel good about it. So I think more people need to understand that movement is key, that those training days can be easy. Maybe it's you just do a few laps in a pool, but you kept your body moving and you did that, and you just broke up, made it a little bit different. You didn't get that repetitive running all the time. So yeah, I think people need to give a little bit more credit to that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm part of what I've adding different things into my training, and I don't call them training. I do go for a bike ride. We jumped to a mountain bike races this year, and all my running friends were like, "Oh, what? You're not going for a run?" It's like, you go for an hour mountain bike race, you're getting a whole lot more of that than slogging out 6 miles of running. Yeah. So, it's been a move back into multiple sports. A couple of years ago, into a house with a swimming pool, which I had sworn I never wanted a house with a swimming pool, but it was a cool house. We liked everything else about it. And then I said, if I'm going to have a swimming pool, God, I'm going to swim. So I started just adding swimming into stuff, and I don't do a lot, not good, but it keeps me, and it's the arms and shoulders better. It's just something different, and it's continuing those movements. And you're absolutely right, Tom, that a lot of people don't kind of stuff enough credit. Just get out and move.
Yeah. So for the folks that are listening, right? So I dabbled in my first 50K last year because I needed an oh shit moment. Like I needed something to slightly scare me to get me out of the kind of that COVID sort of, there's no races. So why do I even need to, why am I putting myself through this training? And by the way, Tim Sorensen's fired since I don't need a training program anymore. So thanks, Tim. Nice knowing you, buddy.
See ya.
So I just heard news right now, no training program needed. Just go out and do stuff. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Sorry, Tim. I didn't tell him that.
So Tim, you're fired. So he's going to be listening to this like, oh man, I was supposed to help her. So for those people that are interested in doing that, is there a couple of things that I know you've been doing this for a while? I mean, reach back to like when you were new and it was exciting and all that sort of stuff. Is there a couple of things that people need to be aware of? Are there a couple of stuff that's non-obvious as people start ramping into really big miles like that? Is it just do more of what you're doing instead of doing 8, do 18, or does fuel become more important? What are those things that people, as they start increasing, is it, rash prevention? Is it, what wisdom would you impart on folks that are saying, okay, I want to make that leap to a 50K or a 50 miler?
Having never had a rash, I'm going to have to veer away from that.
That is no way.
Wow.
That doesn't even, I got a rash the other day just from walking. No kidding.
It's wetter here. I don't know. It's a lot more wet here.
Everyone talks about chafing and rashing, and it's like, what are you talking about? How is this happening?
Awesome. Oh my God, that's awesome.
And having said that, doing Vol State and these other things, I have had chafing from the packs.
Yeah.
So there has been that, but other than that, that's an issue I've never had to deal with.
Yeah.
So I can't really respond to that. But I would say the big thing is just to be aware of your body, really pay attention to what's going on. If there's something that doesn't feel right, figure out what it is and figure out how to correct it early. For blisters, typically I don't get blisters, but as I mentioned, with the wet that we had at Vol State, my feet were a mess. Figure out what you need to do. There's all kinds of books that teach how to tape for blisters and what to do for blisters. If you're getting into running and you get blisters at 10 miles and you want to go to 50 miles, think about what you can do proactively. Tape, figure out how to deal with those blisters. for upping mileage, just be careful. Again, pay attention to what your body's doing. I tend to not go into really high miles. Like I said, if I want high miles, I'll race rather than train. I'm kind of different. You know, a lot of people are saying, oh, I just love running. If I could never train and just race and do as well as I do, I would do that, because it's the racing that keeps me going. And you know, for me, I always need that carrot out there. I need something to be training for. But if you're just going out to train, do it smart. Build your miles slowly. Don't be that person who says, oh, I can run 10 miles. I'm going to go and do 18.
Yeah.
You're very likely to hurt yourself. So, you know, build those slowly, take care. You don't have to do 300-mile runs. Do what you enjoy. Don't just keep pushing. I'm seeing it over and over again in social media, how people just keep pushing to the next level. And I don't know that many of them are really enjoying what they're doing. They're just, they see it out there and they see other people talking about it and they feel like they have to jump on that. Do what you enjoy and just have fun doing it. And
do you have like I think one of my biggest problems is like, I'm getting ready for Ironman California. Right. And I'm like, you know, my goal is always just finish. Right. Hey, just have a good race, you know, feel good when you get across the line, but I want to make sure I do it in, 12 hours and, make sure under, if I had 11 in it, that'd be awesome. Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm just there to finish. Right. I'm just there to do that. But if I can just and I'm horrible like that. Right. I have this internal thing. Like if I'm not going fast enough, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems with the swim is I get frustrated because I think I'm the slowest one in the water and I should be going faster. Whatever speed I'm going, it's not fast enough. When you show up to these events, do you have an expectation in your head? Like you've been very successful. So, well, two questions on this one. When you show up, do you have an expectation on, I want to finish at this time, or does the course and your body tell you what it's going to be? That's question one. And then I guess the second question would be, when you do show up, do you look around and go, oh yeah, I got this? Like, you just like, do you see the other competitors and go, I mean, cause you're at a point now where it's just like, there's a handful of people. Do you just look around and go, yeah, this one's mine. I got it.
I'm sure the other competitors are the same way. They,
they look at her like, oh, Bev's here. Great. Awesome. So who's for second?
Okay.
So, great. Awesome. Great. Look, Bev made it. That's awesome.
I've actually heard say that when they see me show.
I bet. Yep, absolutely.
It's a great community, until the race starts. And then it's like, oh, great.
Right. As far as what I expect to do, I try not to put super high expectations on myself because I just never know.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're going to twist an ankle or have stomach problems or whatever. There's always in the back of my mind, there's always like to, but I almost never will voice that.
Yeah.
There was a 50K years ago that my goal was a course record, and I absolutely would not say that out loud. Mm-hmm. And I got to like the second last aid station and everyone was like, oh my God, you've got the course record. This is awesome. Just, 8 miles to go or whatever it was. And I left that aid station. I was like, I cannot let that come out. I cannot do that. And I immediately went up onto this ridge line that we had to run, and there was like 40-mile-an-hour headwind.
Okay. See?
Yeah.
See what happens?
That's the end of everything.
Yeah, there goes the course record. Yeah. Bye.
Yeah. So, and consequently, I missed the course record by like 5 minutes or 4 minutes or something. And so I always try to keep myself humble about what's going to happen out there. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I have ever come out and said, I will do this, because I just don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. I think, well, there's a goal to finish, right? Which is more important than to finish. Like there's some competitors, and I'm one of them. And it's like, hey, if I'm not going to go at, like, I'll be, even if it's a 40-mile-an-hour wind, like somehow I'll be disappointed because I had this thing in my head where I'm not going to hit it. And now this is no longer fun. It's right. Well, what does it matter anymore? I'm not going to hit this anyway, where you're not enjoying the journey. And I think what I'm hearing is finishing is far and away the most important thing to do. And I'm going to get that done. If I can finish with a course record, that's awesome. And if I'm feeling good and the weather's allowing me to do that, my body's allowing me to do that, yeah, go for it. But also be comfortable with the fact that that's not going to be the case on all races. It's not. To your point, you had to walk a mile on a marathon, which is, because your body was shutting down, but just accept what it is. I think would you agree with that? I think. Yeah,
I think you put it way better than I did.
Oh, okay. Well,
so thank you.
Sure. Let me write that down.
But yeah. I would go back and listen to it and just hang on to that. But yeah, it's important to me to the journey and have, like I said, I do have those little goals in the back of my head, but I very rarely say them prior to an event. And I've been accused of, hiding things and cherry picking and, not saying what I'm thinking and, all kinds of things because I won't come out and say I'm going for a course record or I'm going for a win or because I just don't feel comfortable putting that out.
Sure.
Even though it's in here.
Is there a mantra that you have when you're in the middle of these things? Is there something like you tell yourself?
Not really. I suppose it's probably different every time. If I'm really struggling with something, I just try to pick up my spirits somehow. At Vol State in 2019, when Ellen and I were going through the night and starting to drag and not do what we needed to do, we came up with the Walking with Purpose songs.
Yeah.
If I'm starting to just kind of slog along, I'll bring that up and I'll start singing the Walking with Purpose song.
Nice.
Things like that. And then, for something where I'm trying to hold a pace, like doing a marathon or a half marathon or whatever, the thing that I always pull up is a line from Born to Run, the book Born to Run, where he said, "Run light, fast will follow."
Okay.
So I try to bring that up, and you can, when you start struggling and push, you're starting to run, you can feel a very different feeling in your run.
Yeah.
And I find that if I can get myself back up and start running light again and, pick everything back up, pull it all together, you do pick up your pace fairly quickly. So sort of a mantra that I use on more road-based events is just
I love that one.
Run light.
Yeah, run light. I think that's a great one. That's good. Ice cold beer is another one I like to throw in my head. Ice cold beer's coming. Ice cold beer's coming.
There you go.
Yeah. Was corn dogs the thing? Like, I can't wait for my next corn dog. Like, oh yeah, 8 miles, I get a sweet corn dog.
Yeah, no.
All right. Nobody looks forward to a corn dog, I don't think.
I was surprised at how good it tasted. I have a real wiener in probably 10 years.
Yeah.
And it tasted so good.
Yeah.
And it's a hot dog. It's half digested already for you.
Yeah.
So it just went down and the system used it and ready to go.
Yeah. I did a double century and I remember, I think 140 miles into that bike ride, someone handed us a cup of noodles and it was absolute. I'm looking around at strangers going, have you tried the cup of noodles? These are fantastic. Like, have you tried these? I mean, I wouldn't eat that on a bet in a normal circumstances. And suddenly I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just the saltiness of the broth. The sublime taste. It's so funny how it's not a bagel and a banana and it's like, real food almost. So
yeah, and cup of noodles are great. I mean,
those are fantastic.
Salt hit you could possibly get.
Exactly.
So much salt. It's fantastic. The first Ironman I did at Lake Placid when they broke out the broth, the beef broth, was like, it was most amazing. And I talked to someone else who was like, I didn't get beef broth. I was like, well, I'm a lot slower than you. You just have to be out there a lot longer. When it starts cooling off in the evening, they break out the broth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember the first time I ran Western States when I got to Green Gate. It was dark. It was night, and they had broken out the potato soup.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Gave me this potato, and they asked, "Do you want some potato soup?" And it's like,
really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And they handed me this cup of potato soup, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing I've ever tasted. Can I have more salt in there?
Where's the salt shaker? It needs a little more
There you go.
salt. It just gives you that kick. It's just
Well,
awesome.
on that note, thank you very much for joining us today. This has been a fun conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Really, really, thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been fun. I hope the cutting out of my computer didn't destroy anything, but
nope, that's fine. That's fine. We'll have a transcript as well. We'll have the transcript out. This will be out. Hopefully it'll come out on our YouTube channel if I can get that finished. And it'll also be out audio wise. So I want to thank everyone for listening. Give us your comments, your thoughts, your feedback, any of that. 5 stars would be a great review, because I think we're doing a good job. I think it came out pretty good. And that helps the algorithms. That helps more people find it. And the podcast has been growing. We've got some international folks that are listening, which is cool. So
nice.
as we're having fun and learning, doing this thing, we really appreciate everybody for chiming in. So it's fantastic. Bev, thank you so much. I look forward to next year. You can do Vol State again.
I'm in Heart of the South.
Heart of the South. Okay.
Next year.
Well, the next Vol State, I'll keep an eye out, because I'll come out and cheer you on in the course someplace. So as you come through our state, I'm really enjoying being out here in Tennessee and finding all the cool, fun things that people do. So we look forward to following you, and best of luck in all your races. And maybe we'll have you back on again. You can tell us more war
Very
stories.
cool. Thank you. That was
great.
fun. Thank you.
Great.